Hi, guys.
Good.
I didn't know what to expect when I first got an email from Sam about this film, The Aviary. My first reaction was, oh my God, it's got birds in it. I'm petrified of birds. I'm not going to see this. But then, but then I read the synopsis. Okay, no birds. All right, I'm in. And I love your cast. I love Malin and Chris Messina. I was unfamiliar with Lorenzo's work, and I thought, all right, I got to take a look at this. Number one, this is, pardon me for saying it, but it is a mind fuck. This, this had me riveted. I was just spellbound watching this. Actually, quite cultish in the way that you drew me into this film. This is so taut, edge of your seat. You keep us wondering, are they going insane? Are they not going insane? By the time we get into the second act and we're seeing more flashbacks or what they are perceiving as memories or nightmares, then you're wondering, is this all in their head? You just keep us on tenterhooks at watching this unfold. And even when we get to the ultimate end, and I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but there are still, it still makes you wonder, okay, is it live or is it Memorex? There's still that uncertainty there because this is so mentally unsettling watching this with this influence. And it's very akin to even today's world with social media and influencers, the way people gravitate towards them and are such devotees and followers and, well, I must buy this and I must have that and I must look like this. It's very, very analogous to the world that we live in today. And I think you have really knocked it out of the park.
Debbie, thank you so much. I feel like you just said so many things that we tried to put into the movie, so I'm so glad they read for you. It's funny that you say mindfuck, because when there was a beat where we were, like, trying to figure out, like, what the best, like, genre categorization for it was, and that was what one of our producers wanted to put, but they were like, that's not on the drop-down menu.
It needs to be on the drop-down menu.
Yeah. I mean, you really picked up on everything we were laying down. I mean, I think one of the things, as horror writers, thriller writers, however we're categorized, we like the idea of exploring cults and the nature of belief and everything. And I think when we sat down and started writing The Aviary, we were thinking a lot about how do you write a cult movie for the age of influencers and followers, and how do you move it away from, sort of not just satanic cults, but even like a Jonestown kind of thing where you're seeing, a horrible mass tragedy unfold, and how do you write a cult movie that spirals inward and questions the reasons that we follow people, or how we determine kind of the line between what we believe and what somebody we follow believes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, I'm really glad some people are watching it and like surprised in a really good way that it's not a traditional cult movie, and some people are like, huh? But the people who are our tribe, they get it. They get what we're doing.
Well, one of the great questions that you really posit throughout this entire film It's the whole idea of freedom, because so much of this, we have Jillian saying, come on, we're going to be free. You want to be free, don't you? Let's go, let's go, let's go. And as we see everything unfolding, it really makes you wonder, what is freedom? Because so much of it is in your mind and your own perception of what it is. And just because you may be running through a desert, running out of food and water, are you free? You stumble into a town that turns out to be an abandoned, old, turn of the century, of the 20th century, not the 21st century, but an old, abandoned 20th century town. Is that going to set you free? Is your mind going to set you free? It opens up this whole questioning. If people are paying attention, they will find themselves asking that question. What is freedom? And that's a really great undercurrent that you have through this entire film.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a question that we, I think wrestle with, and you know, I don't think the movie is, you know, necessarily a political movie, but I do think those are questions that you know, people throughout the country have particularly been wrestling with the past couple of years, and will continue to wrestle with of you know, the ways in which our system is set up, and how free it really allows us to be, even though on a daily basis we look around and trumpet freedom and think that we're free. You know, those questions just become more and more pressing.
Mm-hmm. Like, perception is so important in the film, because as we were putting it together and thinking about where we wanted to start the story, we really fell in love with the idea of having it all in the aftermath of them physically leaving, because, you know, so many cult movies, that's the end of the movie, not the beginning. Mm-hmm. And like, yeah, you pointing out the pieces where Jillian wants to celebrate early in the movie, we really liked that too, because we were like, they have no idea, like, I guess there's a line in there, like, I thought leaving was the hardest part.
Yeah, it created an interesting, one of the trickiest things that we had in the edit of the film in post-production was finding a balance at the beginning of, we did really want to sell that idea that Jillian feels like we're out, we're good, we're free, and as we were editing it, it created this interesting thing of, like, you know, we had to walk a line of having her in the moment feel free, but using the filmmaking tools that we had to kind of sell that idea that, like, you know, this isn't as safe as it seems.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is where your choice of location and the way you've structured this film. This is a perfect film to shoot to be a quote-unquote COVID film, since I'm sure you were shooting this during COVID. It's a two-hander, and you have essentially one location, the desert, with this town. But the way you use that visually, the location is an essential character in this film. And kudos to your visual grammar and working with the good Mr. Smolkin in how you give us different views of the desert to give us the sense that they are walking. Then when we're walking in circles, you're looking at it, it's like the desert's the desert. But you can find differences sometimes. And you show that as you break this through and we go through this journey with Jillian and Blair. But you also pay very close attention to the sun and the time of day, which had to just be killing you in editing to make sure that you had all of that lined up. But talk to me about crafting this visual tonal bandwidth and using this location to your best advantage, because honestly, I don't think the film would work as well as it does if you didn't have this location.
Yeah, that was really important to us. As we were scouting for the movie, we wanted to be able to find as much like diversity of desert looks in as few locations as possible, to both, you know, help the look of the film and help the production of the film. And we were, I think, pretty successful in doing that with like two primary locations. We're evolving from these wide open fields and mountains to areas that are more dry with different kinds of plant life. And then, in the third act, we wanted to find places that felt as dry and desolate and hellish as possible. Like there's only really one scene in it, but there was this incredible field of just like burnt out trees, and we were like, great, we found hell, we have to shoot here. Which was really great. And then I'm glad that you noticed how much magic hour and dusk work there is in the film, because that was a real challenge for us too. We had work in that hour and a half on the schedule every day. We would have some bit in magic hour that we had to get, and some bit in dusk, which was a bit of our work, but really working together with our AD and our cinematographer, who you already mentioned, Ellie, who is a brilliant genius, who we never could have done this without him.
Ellie actually, we gave him a co-producer credit on the film because he had to think so much like a producer. So we shot this movie in 14 days. And
wow.
The level of organizational skill that it took on behalf of our AD, Tina Densmore, and Ellie, to coordinate the amount of both, as you noticed, like shooting and tracking the sun, and then also being able to squeeze all of our dusk and magic hour work into every single day of the schedule was an absolute just maddening job to do, but he figured it out, and it's a really he managed to translate what we were going for, which was trying to express the isolation we felt inside during COVID into feeling an isolation outside, and using that space to just swallow them up.
I love the visual grammar. I love what Ellie did. And it's very difficult when you've got to maintain, you need that positioning of the sun. And you need to go through your 3 acts of this journey and take us through the emotional playground, shall we say. Because a good part of this, it's a playground. That mind fuck is a playground for whomever. And this is where the quote unquote, the flashbacks, or the, what is floating around in people's heads comes into play. Great contrast. And I love the lighting differential between the desert, that abandoned town, and the quote-unquote comforts of being at the Aviary. Great lighting differentials, but you still, at the Aviary, I detect like a slight greenish tint wash that makes it kind of sickly almost. And it's a wonderful contrast, but it keeps us in that mindset and doesn't take us out of Blair and Jillian's journey. And it's subtle, but it's really fabulous.
Thank you. Yeah, it was designing the lighting the whole way through, and keeping it of a piece, so that it all still felt like the same world. Because there was, in discussing the flashback scenes and the dreams and the memories from the Aviary, we actually went through a whole bunch. That was another kind of difficult location to find, because not to find, but we did go back and forth with our production designer quite a bit on what this space should feel like, and we really wanted it to feel off, but also natural and grounded. So like we looked at some spaces that ended up feeling almost too womb-like, or too much like a spaceship or something. Like we didn't want it to feel like all of a sudden we were in like Apple headquarters.
Well, right. It was trying to find a middle ground between, I don't know if I believe this space looks exactly like this in reality, but
it doesn't feel like another world. And
yeah.
So we ended up actually using some of the the natural rock formations at one of our locations as sort of those aviary interiors for those flashbacks. And I think that plus some of the color grading helped it feel connected, but a little bit weird.
I just think it just visually, this is such an important component of this story. And of course, then you've got terrific performances from Malin and from Lorenza. But then Chris Messina just has that creepy, creepy, creepy vibe. And dare I even say it, but every time he comes up on screen as Seth, haunting, all I kept flashing back to was General Hospital and their cult storyline they had going for a couple of years. And that cult leader, very, quiet and suave and peaceful and free your mind and let things be. But a creepy vibe. And I'm watching Chris as Seth, and it was that same creepy vibe. But you can't look away. It's the way his delivery of slow cadence, no emotion showing on his face. Could not turn away from that. And that is a testament to him as an actor, but also to the two of you in casting him and giving him direction for this part.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, the whole cast was incredible to work with, and, it was, casting the movie was, I feel like, more than half the battle, just because there's such a limited cast, and the whole movie rests on the shoulders of these four people. So we got Malin first. We've kind of been writing it with her in mind, and then got incredibly lucky enough that she read the script and wanted to do it. And then once we had her on board, it was a matter of finding somebody that we felt would play off of her as naturally as possible, which was a difficult task to be casting that way during COVID, because you don't get those in-person.
Well, right, we couldn't all just go out and have lunch together and see how it felt. But even over Zoom, even with the four of us, Malin and Lorenza immediately, you could tell they liked each other, and there was like a vibe there.
Yeah.
And I think Chris and I had sort of entered the meeting being like, we'll run the meeting, and then we sort of just let Malin and Lorenza talk and hang out, and we knew it would work.
Yeah. And then Chris, he signed on very quickly as well, and he was actually shooting a movie in North Carolina while we were in pre-production. So on the weekends, we were getting on Zoom with him, and just, so giving of his time and
really
collaborative,
really insightful about the script and character, and something we kept talking about with him, and that we even, there were some things that we tweaked of always having Seth come from a place where, like, part of the manipulation is he's coming to you from this contained, controlled, I'm thinking about you place that feels really disarming, which was exactly what we wanted.
Yeah, it was both a lot of what he brought to the table, and then really, oftentimes, and we discussed this in advance with Chris, but the direction was really just kinder, like everything we wanted everything to feel like everything he was saying, he was just wrapping his arms around you. Mm-hmm. And, I think between what he was bringing and that, I think it settled in a place where it's just, you can't take your eyes off him.
Yeah, I mean, just absolutely spellbinding. Now, the big challenge here, you get all this great footage, you finish that part, you go into post. How challenging was your edit? You had David Billow, who does a great job with tension and build. He did a great job with Dirty John Betty Broderick on the episodes that he did. So I'm not surprised that you've got him on this film. This is right up his alley. But how challenging was it to find those tense beats and to keep it building and to hold on them? Because with this film, it's so key that you hold on some of those more tense moments. You can't just build and keep building and building, but you're actually holding, so it's even more unsettling as you're watching it.
David is so talented, and we had never worked with him before. One of our producers had on several of those TV shows, so there was a tiny bit of nervousness coming in, but on the very first cut David delivered, we were like, you're terrified to watch an assembly, and there were already so many beats in the movie that were working so well. A biggest part, I think the biggest challenge was really the COVID piece of editing remotely. So there were a lot of calls over Zoom. There were a lot of paper notes, which was something we had never done before. We had never edited without sitting on that couch behind the person cutting the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was a combination of, because of the limitations of the shoot, of the 14 days, there were a lot of scenes and sequences designed with limited coverage. Like we kind of knew what a lot of that was, how that was going to cut together going in, which helped all of us. And then David has incredible taste and performance. Like, even as we were going back through scenes to sort of maybe there's a better take of this or a more interesting take. It's 75% of the time, I would go through 3 or 4 takes or something, and I'd be like, oh no, he picked the best one, he picked the right one. And I think the most fun beat of the cut with him was the first time we saw, there's a scene where, one of the scarier beats in the film, without spoiling it, I knew what was going to happen. I had shot listed it myself, and as I was watching it the first time, and it continued through multiple cuts, he would get me with one of these scares, and I was like, David, you did such a good job at this. I don't know how you're scaring me with my own movie.
That's a good thing.
Oh, no, yeah, I mean, even though the editing process was a bit unorthodox, it really was, David just absolutely crushed it, and I think it is a testament to his powers as an editor, that he made everything work. Every little bump that we had, he smoothed out, and he was also really helpful in helping us tune up any pacing issues. Like in the first act, in the first couple cuts, we had a couple pacing issues, as you do when you see the way the scenes cut together. And he was really good at getting in there and analytically being like, here's how I see this journey. Here's the moments that I think are most important, and here's how I think we can string the tension out. And then we look at different versions of, here's the first act with this scene missing or that scene missing.
We also took the opportunity to talk to him as much as we could in pre-production and while we were shooting, which I think was really helpful, and we were grateful to have that back and forth with him and that access. He had read the script, we chatted with him a few times, he was watching dailies, and he gave us, I think, some really helpful feedback. So I think, if you can bring your editor in as almost as early as your DP, sometimes it can be really rewarding.
Yeah, we added a couple pickups to the schedule because
he was like, hey, it would be so great if we had this.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, we got you.
Yeah.
So now, this is your first feature directorial as writers and directors. Was there, and you've got some stuff, Chris, I mean, you've written the whole 12 episode series of 12 Deadly Days. You got shorts. You directed some shorts and one TV episode. What was the learning curve like, though? You didn't come in strictly as newbies, so you've got some experience behind you. But what was the learning curve like jumping into a feature of this nature under COVID constrictions with what I'm presuming was actually a minimal production complement.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a boring answer, but I think it felt kind of natural and gradual. Like we had produced and Chris had directed some music videos very early in our career when we were writing together, and then we had co-directed a couple short films, and then we directed a half-hour episode of a lower budget, 12 Days together. But I think really the biggest asset was, having been on that show and show running, so working with all the departments, doing all the pre-production, and then doing that on a pilot for USA that we didn't direct, but that we executive produced. And so we had both as directors and slightly removed as producers had the experience of putting projects together, and then really the scale and limitations of the movie, like even though there were challenges that came with that, it also really narrowed your focus on like this is the money we have to play with, this is the time we have to play with, what do we want, and then how do we edit that down to what we can get and what we need most.
Yeah, so I mean, short answer, we've been ramping up the difficulty since 2009. We've been taking it one step at a time. But yeah, I think our producers, Jessica and Andrew, were both incredible producers and protected our creative vision the whole way through. We met them in TV, and so we'd had a lot of experience working with them, and they were very good in the pre-production process at just nudging us to, keep things focus on, doing the, I don't want to say the basics well, but just like staying focused on what our resources were and making sure that we were using those to the best of our ability and not stretching too far outside, what we were going to be able to do. And I think that focus really helped. And it's part of the design of why we all chose to make this movie as our first movie was, it's 4 performances, it's 4 sets of costumes, it's 1, in reality, 2 location. But each of those things could really be focused on and treated with a lot of care, whereas I think a lot of people's first movies, they get really excited about making a movie and try to go all out and stretch themselves way too thin.
Right. There are certainly sequences in the movie where part of us wanted to be like, let's spend a third of our money just on this and make this the most incredible thing ever. But as being producerial ourselves and wanting the whole movie to be as strong as possible, those were temptations that we were disciplined in avoiding.
Yeah.
Well, job well done, guys. I can't wait to see more from the two of you. You have a very distinct storytelling voice and vision, and it really comes through in this film. I wouldn't even mind a sequel on Seth, or a prequel to find out. That would work.
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to feel like after the fact that there's more to dig through. I mean, the actors have also joked about I would do we could do more of this, which makes you feel good too that everyone enjoyed the process and had a good experience and wants to make another one.
Yeah, so there's definitely more story there. We also have a handful of other TV and feature projects in the works. So hopefully there will be more that we can talk about very soon. But we're so glad you enjoyed the movie and so glad that you really saw what we were going for with it. It's nice to know that we were able to communicate that through the film.
You definitely did. Guys, thank you so much. And I hope we get to do this again in the future.
I think we will. Debbie.
You too. Bye-bye, guys.
All right. Bye.